Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity, and first, let me congratulate all of the winners that are going to be awarded and announced today, because you truly are the backbone of the state of Alabama. To be honest with you, you're probably the backbone of this nation. But too often, we forget that. And too often, we accept things as inevitable when they're not. And I guess that's what I want to talk to you about today. Alabama has made a tremendous amount of progress in the last few years, primarily because we have great partnerships with all of our economic development professionals all over the state of Alabama, but no one has done more than Linda Swan and Neil Wade, who couldn't be here today, to make sure that Alabama remains on the cusp of leadership when it comes to economic development. Thank you, Linda. How many of you watched the debate the other night on health care? Most of you have a normal life then, don't you? There are things that are going on in this country today that I hope is troubling to the business community. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Alabama has done some remarkable things. If you look back 10, 15 years ago, looked at the economy in Alabama then and compared it to where we are today, we understand that globalization is good. Globalization has allowed Alabama to lead the nation in economic development. We're beginning to lead the nation today in per capita income increases, in the quality of life that we have here. We really have had an absolute transformation. And it didn't happen because of politicians. It didn't happen because of what the legislature does or does not do a lot of times. It's happened because of what you do every day. Anyone that tells you that government creates jobs, be suspicious about everything else they tell you too. Because you create jobs. You create opportunity. You create something that would not exist. And if we ever get to the point that we don't remember that, then this country and this state is going to be hard-pressed to continue to lead. When I listened to this debate the other night, I was absolutely amazed that we were having this debate in the United States. Is it going to impact your company? Sure it is. But let me explain to you how it impacts this state, which does impact your company. We have 4.5 million people living in this state. The other night, we added 400,000 people to our Medicaid rolls. Now think about that for a moment. We're being challenged in ways today that I'm not too sure any of us ever could have expected. We know at a national level, next year, our deficit will be over $9 trillion. That's more money than all the debt that was accumulated since George Washington was president. And we sit there and continue to do it. Now, if you take that and combine it with what I want to talk to you today about, I think you'll begin to understand that what we have to do is begin to defend who we are, what we do, and we need to understand that the reason we're the greatest country in this world is because we have always rewarded entrepreneurs. And if we ever get back to the point where that entrepreneur won't take the risk, he won't make that investment, then we're going to become more and more like a lot of other countries that have taken a back seat to America for a long time. But there's something else that really does concern me. And I hope every one of you begin to understand that we have to be vocal advocates for what we have here in Alabama. Now, every time we make a major announcement of an international company coming to Alabama, I always will tell you it's because of great gubernatorial leadership. And I wish that was true. But I want you to think for just a minute conceptually. Think of how many companies you have seen leave the Midwest and the Northeast and move to the South over the last 10, 15 years. Did they come just because of the political climate here, business climate? Partly. But what is happening in this country today, we need to understand. And I'm not too sure I fully understood it until a few months ago when all of a sudden, and I'm not one of these black helicopter type conspiracists, but think of the base in what's happening in this country, the electoral base. When we have to stand up and defend, and this is not Democrat or Republican. This year I'm going to be the chairman of the Southern Governors Conference. And one of the things we understand is that the South is a different region, and we're about to try to brand it as the American South because we are so different from the Midwest, so different from the Northeast. And what makes us unique, the reason we have all of these companies coming here is because we have natural competitive advantages. But think about what cap and trade would do if we added 42 cents on the dollar to our electricity rates. The advantage that we have because of the fossil fuels that we have here today is immediately gone. And all of a sudden, we are less competitive with other regions of the country. We don't have wind here. Solar is not going to work here. But all of a sudden, if power rates go up, every one of you are going to be impacted and affected. Think about something like card check. Card check, in a right-to-work state, for the first time, we're debating a policy where someone can come in and set up a union activity or a union shop in your place of business without a secret vote. This is not anti-union. This is about just some of the things that people consider when they come here. But I never really fully understood what I think is happening until one night I sat up in bed, literally sat up in bed one night and said, why would the president give Alabama $120 million to, quote, modernize our unemployment insurance? So the next morning I called Tom Surtees at DIR and I said, send me a list of what the rest of the states pay. Correct me if I'm wrong here. In Alabama today, if you're unemployed, you receive a check for about $286 a week. You know what it would be in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana? And remember who pays this? Businesses pay this. Businesses pay this, which raises your cost. Tom sent me a list, and I forgot how many states were at $400. Then there were a big group at $500 a week. There were 3 or 4 at $600 a week. And if you happen to live in Massachusetts and have enough children, it's $940 a week. Ladies and gentlemen, if you begin to add all of this up, all of a sudden we begin to understand that what makes us as economically competitive as we are today is some of the innate advantages we have had for so long. And we never need to take them for granted.